Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And we've arrived! We have arrived!
That's right.
We are finally talking about the last top 10 on the BoardGameGeek's top 100 list.
That's right. Basically, in early March, there were some shifting games in the top 10. The games we're about to talk about that just spurred a lot of discussion online. And so we wanted to talk about that too. So basically, back in March, we printed off a list of the top 100 games.
Yep.
And we've still been going through them 10 games at a time. Today, we're finally arriving to that top 10, that wild top 10 that caused all this discussion. And so we're going to get a chance to talk about all that. And we want to hear from you guys as well. What do you think about this top 10? Is this the top 10 best games of all time?
Yeah.
What do you think? What are your top 10 games? We'd love to hear from all you guys on that.
But before we get started on this, an interesting thing to note, we always talk about how this list is fluid and it's living and it changes. Some of the games that we've already talked about are no longer on the top 100 list from the screenshot we took in March. So that's just how everything moves like that. So that's why it was just for the point of discussion. But now we're discussing what we came here to discuss.
That's right.
We're going to start with number 10. That is Spirit Island.
This is a full cooperative game that is kind of almost like a tower defense. We'll call it an island defense style game. But basically, you are and all the other players are kind of partnering with the island itself to kind of repel all the people who are trying to land on and take over the island. So it's kind of like this tower defense style thing going on. It's just tons of content for this game. There's so many different expansions and modules and characters. And you could never outplay this game. Yeah. There's just so much for it. It's got a cool theme, cool artwork. Like I said, lots of available content. This is a great game for the top 10.
I also never see this game for sale at reused game sales, at Geekway. This game is never there.
That's a good point. You don't see secondhand copies of it because everyone's just hanging on to their copy.
Yes. So I think that's a really good sign of why it's on here is because people who buy it keep it. They're like, yes,
heck yeah,
this game. All right, number 9 is Star Wars Rebellion.
All right, for a while, IP style games were just kind of not very good, right? Yeah. This is one of those ones that kind of came out, and I was skeptical of it, but it did really, really well. And so when I finally got a chance to play it, I was like, all right, I get it. And then since then, IP games have kind of swung around to where at this point, you can't really make a crappy IP game without people calling you out. So
Harry Potter Talisman much?
Yeah, no, well, that's a Talisman problem, not a Harry Potter problem. But yeah, it used to be whatever, Star Wars Uno was the best you can get. And those things are still out there, and that's fine. I'm okay with those being out there. But I also love having a game that is in the Star Wars world that feels like a segment of the movie. So specifically what's happening is this is a 2-player game. One person is the Empire, one person is the Rebels. And the Rebels have a hidden base. The Empire doesn't know where it is. And so it's kind of this game of cat and mouse trying to find the hidden base throughout the whole game. It's exactly like episode 4 of Star Wars, and kind of even in episode 5 as well, when they have to move bases to Hoth, and then they find the next base, and they have to move to the next base, and you kind of have this whole thing going on. You have all these land units, you have these air units, and you're trying to figure out, how should I do it as the Rebel player? Should I just put all my guys on my base, and then, defend it, so that way when they do find it, which they probably pretty much guess that that's the one, but when they do find it, I can have the best chance of defending it? Or do I just leave it completely, put nobody on it, and just you kind of have this red herrings all over the board, but then you run the risk of having the Empire just kind of accidentally stumbling upon it. So, I think it's such a cool game, cool mechanisms, hide and seek kind of thing going on. It's very evocative of Star Wars. It's a little on the longer side, but at the same time, you're engaged the whole time.
Yeah. All right, and number 8 is War of the Ring 2nd Edition. Little trivia about this game. It's the number 1 board game on BoardGameGeek.
Yes, so this is obviously 2nd edition. The original War of the Rings came out in 2004. This one came out in 2011. But basically, it is a war game.
I'm disappointed that's not in the 11 spot. It came out in 2011.
That's what I think about. 7 Wonders should always be
yes.
7 of something. No, it's a war game set in the Lord of the Rings universe. It's got dice for the combat resolution, but you have the kind of the secret thing going on the whole time is you have this big combat between all the Free Peoples and then the armies of Sauron. But then you also have this sneaky little Frodo and the Fellowship trying to take the ring to Mount Doom. If they can destroy the ring, they can win that way instead of just by winning by combat. So that's what gives this game this unique, well, first of all, super thematic within the Lord of the Rings, but also this extra little kind of thing to think about.
I don't know how I feel about dice combat, though.
Yeah, like for a modern style game design, you don't necessarily want dice combat resolution. But then again, we're not war gamers either.
That's true. That is very true.
To me, looking at the board, this is probably going to give me some major hate, but it feels like Risk. It looks like Risk. In fact, I've played Lord of the Rings Risk, and that exact same thing is happening, where you have your two sides, and then you also have the Frodo trying to do his thing as well. So it's like. Whatever.
All right, so number 7 is Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. This is the one that was at Target, and it was like kind of a big deal when it came out because it was a more beginner-friendly version of it.
Of Gloomhaven?
Yes, of Gloomhaven. So the storyline is before Gloomhaven, and it has a storybook instead of all these map tiles that you have to set up, and it kind of introduces you to it, gives you a system to walk through it. It was just a way to get people to buy Gloomhaven. That's really all it is.
The first one's free. A little taste of it to get you addicted.
Yeah. Once you're in it, then look at all of the other things we have. That's what it is. That's what Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion is.
This kind of surprises me as a casual version of Gloomhaven that it did so well ranking-wise, right? It's... Yes. A lot of the other kind of smaller versions of big games, we don't see those showing up as... On this list. I mean, maybe the only one exception would be Seven Wonders Duel showing up along with Seven Wonders, but you don't see the dice version of blah 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 or the card version of blah 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 or
that's true.
Like Ares Expedition version of Terraforming Mars. I mean, that did rank really high as well, but it surprised me this one made literally the top 10 of all time.
Yeah, top 10
as an offshoot of. Another game we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to have more thoughts on this. So let's continue. Number 6 is Terraforming Mars.
All right, so which I just mentioned Ares Expedition, but Terraforming Mars, the original game, oh, what a cool game. This is all about, obviously, it's Terraforming Mars.
When is this book going to happen? I need this game to be a book.
There's books about Terraforming Mars.
No, but I want this, like all the corporations and stuff that are in it. Like, I want this book, and you follow the generations. I want this. I want this book.
You want every book.
Yes.
So you're trying to raise the temperature of Mars. You're trying to raise the oxygen levels of Mars. You're also trying to add water and oceans to Mars. And all those things are going to give you victory points, but also they're going to give you income, which is really nice. And you're all these corporations trying to do their best to terraform Mars, and you end up with this big, large tableau of cards out in front of you. Some of them just give you stagnant abilities, like raising your various stats. Other things give you actions that you can take in addition to the normal actions. Other things are going to give you resources. Other things are just like one-time events that are going to give you a bunch of crap, and then they're kind of going away. But this game is... it can go a little long, but at the same time, I've never played a game where every single person wasn't like watching what everybody else's move was. And because no matter how many actions you're capable of taking, you're limited to either 1 or 2 actions on your turn. And you keep on going until everyone runs out of actions they can take. So even if you have 10 things you want to do, you get 1 or 2 of them to do at a time. So it goes pretty snappy on the table, even if the game itself is fairly long. Each individual turn is small.
And I feel like this is a game that they keep pushing out expansions to it because people keep buying the expansions to them. Like, they wouldn't put things out there that people aren't going to consume, but people like it so much that as soon as you put something out there, they're like, yes, more, give me more, give me more.
Well, like the Prelude expansion was fantastic because it gave you a whole bunch of special abilities and resources up front before the game started, in addition to your normal...
so you can, like, jumpstart it.
It's exactly what it is. So you get a jumpstart on the whole thing, and you get to skip the first round or 2 around the table.
Well, that fixes what you just said about how you feel like it goes a little bit too long. It's just like, here,
gets you going.
Now it won't.
So now, whenever I play with people who have Prelude always gets played, which is really nice.
All right, so number 5 is Twilight Imperium 4th edition. If you hear anybody talk about TI4, this is the game they are talking about.
Yes, TI4, or obviously there was a 3rd, 2nd, and 1st edition as well, but TI4 specifically is the best of the bunch. This is what's called a 4X style game. So a 4X, if you're not familiar with that terminology, if you hear people talk about it, those the 4X's are expand, exploit, exterminate, and explore. And so those are the kind of things, kind of almost like a sandbox style game. You can kind of do whatever you want. You can kind of explore parts of the map, or you can try to fight people and exterminate them off the map, or you try to expand out your territories and your regions. So those are the different kinds of things you're doing in this game. This is a long one. We're talking 8, 10, 12 hours, depending on how many players you're playing with and what style of players they are. This is a game where you're going to want to have some meals planned up for it. You're going to want to sit down. You're going to want to have comfortable chairs because you're going to be there for the long haul. But you know what? It's also a good time. Everything is over the top, and the artwork is amazing, and the miniatures and the ships and everything are just super, super cool. It's a big table hog. This is just, what a cool game. I will say something controversial because
dun dun dun.
I feel like that's the theme of this is Ryan saying controversial things. I love this game, right? I've played it. I like setting up a once a year game of this. You know,
I feel a butt coming on.
But there is a lot of other games that give me similar feelings that take a fraction of the time. Or, you know, I'm thinking sometimes, like, when I'm playing with people who are maybe a little bit more of the analysis paralysis side of things, gosh, I could be playing, during this one 12-hour game, 6 other 2-hour games that are all equally satisfying. So I could be literally having 6 times the fun if I'd played 6 2-hour games. And 2-hour long game is not like a short game anyways. 2-hour games are a long, satisfying game. But playing a 12-hour game, you're locked in for it from the whole time with the same people. Yeah, it's a daunting task. So yeah. I do love this. I'll continue to play it that once a year, big epic day. But I don't know. I understand why it's in the top 10. I understand why it's as high as it is. It is an amazing time. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
But
I'd like to also play more stuff.
All right, number 4 is Ark Nova. So this is a game where you're building a zoo, but while you're doing that, you're also trying to equally do conservation efforts as well. And this is really fun because the scoring you said it was in another game. What was that?
Rajas with the Ganges? I'm
yes.
sure I'm pronouncing that slightly wrong, but...
So the scoring track happens where one track is moving this way and the other track is moving this way, and the game ends when they cross. And I thought that was so cool because how you score depends on that, on your individual pieces. And so you kind of have to manage a little bit of everything. And I thought that was really cool. And I like the fact that you're doing the zoo and the conservation efforts. But one thing that amazes me that this is on the top 10 is that it's fairly new.
Yeah.
Like, it's only like 2 years old, and the fact that it's liked this much, it must have just hit the market at just the right time. Probably when people were playing games with each other again is probably when this game came out, and everybody was talking about this game. I saw posts of it I still see posts about it, but I saw posts of this like non-stop for months, and that just like surprises me. Doesn't surprise me because of the game, because the game is great, but surprises me on how new it is and how quickly it rose up there.
Also, this game is incredibly easy to set up. You have these little trays that have these dividers for all of the different sizes of buildings and or not buildings, but like enclosures for the animals and all the money and everything else, all the tokens you need. They're all already pre-sorted. If you put it away the right way. And then as far as that, you just lay out the board and you shuffle this huge deck of cards. That's it. You're ready to go. It's like a 2-3 minute setup for a very long, satisfying game. So sign me up.
Yeah. All right. So number 3. Wait a second. Number 3 is Gloomhaven. Didn't we just talk about Gloomhaven?
So that was Jaws of the Lion Gloomhaven.
Fudge me buckets.
That's a different game.
Both in the top 10. Both. Okay, so Gloomhaven is this huge, expansive dungeon crawler, and you do all this awesome stuff, and you do things. Okay, here's my real question. Now that I've explained that so thoroughly.
Yeah, they're like, what? What is this game about again?
If you haven't heard of Gloomhaven, you probably just got into gaming in the past month.
Yes, well, yes.
Okay, so this is like a dungeon crawler game, and it's awesome and expansive. And I was able to play one session of this game. We started playing it in the beginning 2020. So
something happened later on in 2020 that made it so that
we couldn't finish playing it. And even though I had a great time playing that one session, later when I played Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle-earth, it felt like the same to me, but I just so thoroughly enjoyed Journeys in Middle-earth more. So I need to know from people who play a lot of games like these, a lot of dungeon crawler games, why is this one so high? I need to know this because I personally enjoyed this more. So I know I'm missing something, and I need you to tell me what I'm missing.
For me, I think that this is a very large, expansive experience. Your characters evolve and change, and even I think die over time. And you just get attached to the story, and you get attached to the people you're playing with, and you're just kind of you're just growing and growing, and this whole thing is changing with you. To me, I am the kind of player who I like a lot of variety. Since as well as reviewers too, we need to be playing a lot of different kinds of games. When you sign up for Gloomhaven, you're signing up for hundreds of plays potentially, and of course there's all this kind of expansion content and extra scenarios and promo scenarios and whatever the case is. If you're a completionist, which I know a lot of people are, you're going to be playing hundreds of scenarios of Gloomhaven, hundreds of plays, and it's going to take up a lot of time. And I think you're going to love every second of it, right? I think it's there's a reason it's ranked this high. Because people get into it are just they're ravenous for it. It's great, fantastic. But similar to how I was talking about, with playing Twilight Imperium, instead of playing hundreds of missions of Gloomhaven and liking each one of them and having a great time, I would prefer to play hundreds of games.
Yeah.
And have the variety. So I think it would be hard for us to get into a long-term campaign and scenario of
like
Gloomhaven.
a years-long campaign is how I'm understanding.
Some of our friends who went through like all of it, it took them 2-3 years to get through every little bit of it.
I was talking to one of them, and she was saying how they played one scenario. I can't remember what she said, like 5 times, and they kept losing it every time. But it's just like that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's carry on. Number 2. This is a game I am very fond about. This is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Now I have to tell you guys, this is one of those legacy games. It's the legacy game. There were legacy games before this, but I feel like this is what made people hungry for legacy games because the story of this was so fantastic. Something happens in this game.
No spoilers.
Well, I mean, it's been out for a while. I think I could spoil it.
No, don't you dare.
I'm not going to, but I'm just saying, like,
That'd be naughty.
There's a statute of limitation. Let me know in the comments below, when a game is released and it is a legacy game, what is this, like, not statute of limitation, but when can you spoil it? Like, how long is that? But anyway, something happens in this game.
Never.
That totally wrecked me, and I remember being at work the next day, and I was, like, down. I was like actually down because of this game, and I couldn't explain to anybody that I was working with, yeah, I'm really upset because of this thing that happened in my game last night. Like, you just can't do that. But when you talk to other people who have played this game, they know exactly what you're talking about, and they experienced the exact same thing. So that's just incredible that this game was created and you can do all these things, but it brings you along the story. And I think that's one of the reasons why this game is so well known, is because it doesn't ask you as a player to be a storyteller. It just asks you to be engaged with the game while it takes you through this entire emotional story. And they did a fabulous job at it.
I mean, there was Risk Legacy beforehand, and it did really well, and it was regarded really well too.
Yeah.
But I think there's something special about a legacy game that is cooperative.
Yes, I 100% agree with that.
And pairing that with Pandemic, which was at the time, the cooperative game, it was the most well-known cooperative game, so it made the most sense to have that be the cooperative game that they made into Legacy.
Yeah.
And, it just made so much sense. Everything, it started the way that you're familiar with regular Pandemic, and then it felt like there was adding all these really cool new mechanisms. The story was changing with it. by the end of it all, you're just like blown away.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they made sequels. They made Pandemic Legacy Season 2 and Season 0, kind of a prequel. And we played through all those as well, and just unbelievable experiences. But nothing will ever.
We just finished 0.
Yeah. Nothing will ever be as cool as Season 1.
Yeah. It definitely. I hope that it doesn't leave at least the top 20, just because maybe people aren't engaging with it as much as they used to, because it really is that unique, and I feel like it's gonna always deserve a spot up here because of what it did for gaming. That's just Bethany's 2 cents. Okay, we have arrived. This is the reason why we made this list.
Absolutely. So the number 1 game on BGG back in March when we made this list, as well as just now today as we're recording this, is Brass Birmingham. This is a game that, when it finally took over the number 1 spot, it made the news. It was not the news, but like board gamers were talking about this because Gloomhaven had it for so long, and obviously Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is in the mix as well. But when it took over, everyone was like, "Oh, what's going on?" Well, the people were asking, especially like Gloomhaven fans, board game rankings don't matter anymore. And of course, like the economic fans of Brass were like, "Oh, finally the rankings are working in our favor," But then, Gloomhaven is still number 3, so it's like it is still in your favor. You're still the number 3 game of all time. But it's just very, very funny and interesting to how a slight shift changed the conversation. And every time that happens over the past,
we've been following it, yeah.
When I remember when Puerto Rico lost the number 1 spot, and when Agricola lost the number 1 spot, and when the Twilight struggle.
Never up there?
It was. I don't think it was in the number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only ever been like 10 games ever that have had the number 1 spot.
I remember when Love Letter was in the top 10. That was good. That's good times.
Simpler times, my friend. Simpler times. All right, so Brass Birmingham. This is basically a sequel to or a re-implementation of Brass. It's from Martin Wallace, and basically in this game, it's a trade game. It's an economic game. You're going to be building your network of railroads and canals. You're going to be you have your different industries, and you're trying to increase the value of all these different industries, trying to sell all your different goods to make all this happen. You're going to take some loans, lose some points. You have some hand management involved as well. You're playing the markets, and you're playing, doing this whole network and rail building connection things. What a cool game. What a great game. And Brass by itself was just this absolute titan. It was this great, fantastic game. I remember there's like all these different maps and stuff that you could get for it at one point. But Brass Birmingham is kind of like the culmination of all of it. This is the best version of Brass and Brass Lancashire and Brass Birmingham and all that stuff. This is the version of it according to the rankings.
Lake.
I don't know. I had it right. I'm not even gonna re-say it because I know I just said it right. But this is the number 1 strategy game. It's the number 1 overall game on BGG right now, and it's not even that heavy or that long of a game. It's pretty accessible, honestly.
Oh yeah, it says 3.89.
This is a pretty accessible game. This is not like one of those daunting ones that's gonna
maybe that's why it's so high. It's because it's not like
you get all those same emotions, all the same feelings, while being in a slightly more accessible.
More people can play it.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, you guys, that is it. That is the top 10 of the top 100 of BGG of all time.
So, our overall thoughts. Sometimes there's games that are repeated with different editions, and we don't know if they both belong to be on there. There's 0 kids games on this list, which is just really sad for me because there's so many brilliant, amazing kids games. We don't see a lot of party games on this list, and even though I'm not a huge party game player, I just feel like party games are more accessible to the large, not gaming community, but community as a whole. So those are some of our thoughts.
Even gateway games, we saw maybe 1 or 2 like mid-weight style games, Euro style, or gateway style games.
The roll-and rights and the flip-and rights, which are some of the most amazing games I've ever played, not mentioned.
So I think this top 100 is obviously skewed very heavily towards, I would say, a little bit of the older games.
Huge Kickstarters.
Big, overproduced Kickstarters. And
heavier games.
And heavier games. So those are the things that we saw a lot of. And there's nothing wrong with any of those. And the best of the best, I think, did a good job of rising to the top.
Yeah, the best of those groups are definitely represented on here. It's not like it's just that stuff.
But it isn't necessarily what we've represented of what's getting played, per se. Yeah. So, some of these, even last night I saw Brass Birmingham getting played at our local meetup, which was fantastic. And Arc Nova was too, actually. So the top 10.
Proof.
Doing good. But the rest of it, I feel like I see, those, let's say Splendor-style games, or Azul, or, what's another one? Century Spice Road. Those are the kind of games that
Three Sisters!
Those are the kinds of games that you see getting played constantly, everywhere you go, but nowhere on the list.
Yeah, so those are our thoughts on that. Maybe we could do like a ranking of just like top kids games, top party games, We
have made a top 10 kids games, and we have made a top 10
party games. No, but
off
of the BoardGameGeek list. Like, go through and talk about, like,
I see. How the BGG rankings within that. Because there is that rankings. There is a top, they separate it out by category as well as the overall. And so eventually, at the end of the year, or sometime during the year, we're going to be doing our own personal top 100s as well, which is going to be a blast.
A blast for who?
Me.
I'm going to feel bad about the games I don't choose.
They're fine. They're just games.
No, but it's not just a game. It's somebody's behind that game that made that game and put that game together.
Yes, and you're not saying they're bad. You're just saying here's the best.
My personal... You know what? We should make it like we're only going to do this once we reach 3,000 subscribers.
That sounds great. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make it happen.
I'll have plenty of time to work on my list.
We also had someone mention in the comments before how we should maybe make our own, version of the top 100. It's not our personal feelings are not necessarily involved. Basically, anecdotal stuff of what we've seen, what we've heard, and taking out some of the things that we think are duplicates or whatever, and culling it down to what we think the top 100 should have been.
What would come up when we eliminate for all those things? Yeah,
I think that would be fun. I don't know if we'd make a full 10 video series of it, but maybe like one long video, or maybe put it in our blog, something like that. I think that'd be a fun exercise to do.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see your videos as they come out. And if you enjoyed what you watched, consider leaving us a tip. There's a link down below and how to do that.
You guys, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.